Do you want to live more sustainably but aren't sure where to start or how it fits in with your everyday living? The ReNewy Living Podcast simplifies sustainability so you can feel confident to take small, meaningful actions that fit into your lifestyle. Based on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people in Newcastle, Australia, you'll learn how to live lighter on our planet through practical ideas, stories from like-minded people, and examples of businesses doing great things. With an open heart and mind, join me, Marty Lee, as we explore how to consume less, build stronger community connections, and thrive in your neighbourhood, wherever you call home. Welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Hello, I'm Marty Lee, and welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Beneath our everyday choices, there's something quietly whirring away, helping us make a decision. It's our values. Whether it's choosing slow over fast, local over global, or people over profit, our values shape the way we show up and speak to what really matters. They influence what we say yes to, what we walk away from, and how we define good work for ourselves, our communities, and our planet. In this episode, I'd love you to meet Bec Bowie, former owner of the much-loved Newcastle cafe Estabar. We're talking about how values influence the way we shape both our lifestyles and our work to feel more purposeful. This conversation is a great reminder that when you lead with your values, then everything flows with more meaning and more impact. G'day, Bec. How are you?
Great, Marty.
It's really lovely to be inside your home, so thank you so much for inviting me in here.
You're so welcome.
And knowing that you were the founder and the owner of Estabar for 20 years. When did you realise that your values were coming through in what you were doing in Estabar?
Well, when I opened Estabar, I went in with really clear intentions. So I had really clear values. However, it wasn't for a long time that I realised that they were actually showing up for people. I just thought I was doing what I thought was the best work I could possibly do. And a lot of the time I felt like people perhaps didn't perceive the nuance and the intention and the work that went into hitting those goals. But after some time, I realised that that was actually what was driving the business, and that's what was driving our relationships with our community and with our guests, and especially with my team.
It's amazing to realise something like that, because we always start something for a reason. And I'm pretty sure that you would have started Estabar for a pretty clear reason that you didn't really know exactly that was your values, but it ended up shaping to be what Estabar was like.
Yeah, that's for sure. So going into Estabar, I was really clear that I wanted to create an incredible working environment. I wanted to work with great people that were really showing up and living their lives, but I also wanted a working environment where people could really be at their best, be really cared for and supported, and really leave that business or that work experience with confidence and skill development, and also the ability to really relate to other people, see other people, and to really think about the decisions that they made in their life and how they added value or didn't. So it was about the team, and then it was about community. I really wanted to create a beautiful, safe space where people could come and just connect with themselves first and foremost, but also be really celebrated. So we always welcomed everybody, no matter who they were or what mood they were in. We always welcomed everybody. And that was, to me, a really important thing to do for people. And then finally, I was into the caring for the planet, being part of the solution, doing good work.
Your work prior to Estabar, did that have any influence on where you wanted to go with Estabar?
It really did. That's a great question, Marty. So I worked in local government before we opened Estabar, and I went into local government fresh out of university and so keen to serve. And I felt like a position with local government just gave me the opportunity to get amongst the community and do good work. And so I was super passionate. And so, of course, I took that passion and desire into Estabar. But I guess the team environment, I worked with great people and for great people at council, but I'm not sure that we were all of the time thrilled to be there or giving our 110%. And I really felt that because that's how I wanted to really live and be. And so when I moved into owning my own business, it was top priority that we would all be excited to be there and super involved and engaged. So I hired for that, but I also set my business up to really support that.
Did you have any cafe experience before you opened Estabar?
I did. I got fired from several cafes.
Oh, gosh. But then what did that teach you?
When I got fired from those cafes, they never called me and told me that I was fired. They just let me drift. And that was a great lesson because it really taught me the responsibility of having a genuine relationship with someone, and that at times you have to make difficult decisions and difficult calls, and it's okay because we are all at different times in our lives best in different places, and it just is maybe that is not your best place right now. And I had some serious things to learn, and they could have just said to me, you're not great at that particular thing, and as a result, you're out. But I was the person ringing going, have I got shifts this week? Until I realised that I didn't.
But one of the things that you perhaps would have been good at is talking to customers.
I was so good at talking to customers. I think that was one of my problems, was that I thought that was my job. And so I was all about talking to the customers, and maybe I was a little bit too slow on the responding to the coffee up or the other tasks that needed attending to.
So you've started Estabar, you've got your team as a priority, your people, and you've got your planet totally all sorted. What else made your cafe so unique?
Well, I mean, ocean views go a long way. What happened for me is, several years into the business, I discovered I had an autoimmune disease. And so I went off to New York and studied with the Natural Gourmet Institute for a period of time to figure out how to kind of heal myself. But I also then became really aware that my business could make me sick, and it could also influence the health of other people. And that was really a point of responsibility for me. And I felt that I wanted to make sure that whatever we were doing at Estabar was absolutely going to contribute to the health of my team and my customers and the planet, which was already, broadly my intention. But when I came right down to the nutritional value of what I was offering people, that was a whole nother layer. So when we started Estabar, we looked for the best products we could. Even when we started, we weren't buying cheap anything. I was driving to Sydney every week to pick up produce, to go to the best bakers and the best whoever. But then when I went to New York and I studied with the Natural Gourmet Institute, and I worked in a restaurant that only worked with a handful of farmers and producers and providores and whatever, but they worked with them all year round and they took whatever they had. So they didn't say, here's our idea, I'm going to go and find that. They said, you're my person, you're my farmer, I want to have a relationship with you where you are supported all year round and I'm going to get the greatest produce all year round. And so I loved that because that shifted the creativity for one thing, in that you had to think about, well, what have I got to work with and how am I going to make that great, rather than the sky's the limit and what can I find, what exotic ingredient am I going to bring in. It was really born in that relationship and that mutual support and respect. And I feel like that's what builds community. So when I came back from New York, we shifted tack more in that direction. So I feel like that is one of the fundamental things that set Estabar apart, was that we had genuine relationships with our customers, with our suppliers, but we were very congruent and we were also very authentic.
Really important, especially when food in a cafe is one of the key things that you're selling as a service. It's a service and a product. Yeah. And you're now sharing that story and going, we need to value this a lot more. And just having that value of authenticity is really important.
So important. And, I could see many times where you could cut a corner and get a cheaper ingredient, and that might save you a little bit of something, but what you lost was a little bit of integrity And you lost a little bit of respect from your team. So if my team saw me spruiking that what we were about was the local and the seasonal and the building the relationships and the supporting the farmer and then feeding the customer nutrient-dense food, but then I'm cheapskating it on something else, then I lose that little bit of respect. And I can't afford to do that because I need that relationship with that team member to be sound so they show up every day, present Estabar for what it is every day. I just couldn't erode that confidence.
Yeah, it has to be aligned.
It has to be aligned.
So, if that is you've just clearly said those values that you had for the cafe, and in order for that to happen, you needed to buy good quality food. But that comes at a cost. But the cost is not just a financial cost, and it's not about cheap food, is it, when you have all those other qualities?
No, not at all. It's not about cheap. It's never about cheap. The costs are, it can be inconvenient. You might have to get in your car and go for a drive. It might be more difficult because you're really reliant on what the season was able to produce. So you have to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more prepared to try other things.
As a business, tell us some food stories and decisions that you had to make.
There's so many. The ones that really stand out for me was our almond milk. So when almond milk became a thing, we looked at the almond milks on offer and they were, Australian-made almond milks. And then we looked at the ingredients and it was 97% Australian water and 3% Spanish almonds. And that was it across the board. And that just irritated me absolutely no end. I was so frustrated and angry that consumers are misled so frequently in this way. When you're trying to do the right thing, but the fine print tells a completely different story. So we bought almonds from Riverina and we made our own almond milk. We mixed it with hemp and it was delicious and fabulous and people loved it, but it was an incredible pain in our ass to make fresh almond milk every day. It was really a lot of work. But we did that for a long period of time and then we dropped almond milk altogether because it was either drop almond milk or lose some key team members who didn't want to squeeze almonds every day.
It would have been hard.
Yeah, that's it. So for a really important period of time when almond milk was a big deal, customers would be coming in asking for almond milk and we would have to tell them, look, we don't serve almond milk because of our values, because we only want to support local seasonal producers with integrity. And that annoyed a lot of people no end, but we stuck to our guns. And then eventually a lovely man from Mandoli Almond Orchard, which is in Griffith in New South Wales, walked in and it was like a saint walked into the cafe because he was like, here is a litre of almond milk produced in your same state where they reduced their water usage by 30% and they were making sure that the almond pulp was repurposed. They had the same value set as us. It wasn't even that they were just Australian, like legit Australian, they had the same value set. So that was such a relief for all of us and so exciting. But of course, because it's such a product, it's a product with so much integrity, it's more expensive than if we just bought almond milk off the shelf. So it didn't come with the cheap price tag at all, but it came with the opportunity for us to stay aligned, to stay congruent, to be able to keep telling the same story and make sure that people kept believing in us.
I think that's such a beautiful story. And I like how you've described him as a saint.
Yeah.
Because you've been sitting and thinking about it for a while and it shows that there's a lot of thought that goes into having a business that very much aligns with your personal values, which then feed onto your business values as well.
Yeah, I remember the day you walked into the cafe still.
Yeah. Things that people forget about.
It can become a bit of a rabbit hole.
It can.
Sometimes when you have really strong values, personally, I can find myself getting a bit stuck and I can't move forward because I don't see the solution that works, that meets my values. But it's so good to look across the spectrum of what's on offer and just choose what's best for you right now. Like, I want to tell you the salmon story. Right, so we were using Tassie salmon, tassel, forever because we thought, tick, it's an Australian product. And then I read Toxic, which is a book about Tassie salmon and the realities of the impact on community, on the waterways, on the local ecosystems, and the health of the fish themselves. And I realised that it was such a disaster for Tasmania and it should never have happened. And it shouldn't be happening now. And so we abruptly stopped using Tassie salmon and went to look for what an alternative might be. And we wound up using New Zealand salmon. We chose New Zealand salmon because they're growing the salmon it's still farmed, but it's out in the sea, which means they have to invest more in their cages, more in their fish nets and so on. And the stocking level was so much lower. So if you put their salmon in a bowl and Tassie salmon in a bowl, there'd be 100 salmon in the bowl versus 3 salmon in a bowl. So they respected the integrity of a salmon in that it is a aggressive, independent, free-moving creature, and that it shouldn't be grouped tightly with a whole bunch of other salmon because it just goes against their nature. And of course they're going to get sick and stressed. So we chose to go with New Zealand salmon, which of course came at a much higher price because they were doing the work to produce a great product that was ethical and sustainable. They were ticking all of those boxes that we really cared about. And the salmon tastes better and it presents better. We're thrilled to have been able to shift to it. And I guess that was another nice thing that we found in the cafe is that often you're presented with a problem that seems like a big deal, but what it is an opportunity for you to do something better. It's like a little tap to go to just a little segue for you to see that you could be doing something better.
And how understanding were your customers in relation to your decisions that you made behind the scenes and what you actually offered?
They loved it because, and that's the thing that I think was so important, is because we didn't offer everything that people were used to seeing on cafe menus. They had to think about, well, why is that and what's happening here? And then they could see that we had these values, and that was an opportunity for them to either not care because they didn't, or to go, oh my goodness, I want to live this way, or I am living this way. And what a blessing to have a place that I can go to that's already doing all that work for me. I don't have to sift through the menu. I don't have to think about it. I can just show up, enjoy my meal and my time, and know that I am living and eating according to my values. And I'm supporting a business that supports other businesses that subscribe to those values.
Oh, I love it. Oh, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about a story about cafes, and you know how you're providing something completely different to other cafes. Back in 2006, my eldest son was transitioning from breast milk into solids. And a part of that recommendation is to have bananas. And I remember 2006 because there was a massive cyclone and there was this banana shortage, and the cost of bananas per kilo was exponential. So this one banana that I had to buy because my child needed to transition to solids was amazing. But I was going to cafes at that time and banana bread was still on the menu at no different price. And I couldn't quite understand until later that perhaps they weren't using either Queensland bananas or they weren't using bananas at all. So it really made me think about cafes quite differently.
That's so interesting. We had a similar problem. I remember that banana issue, but because we only served avocados when we could get them locally, we would have customers in. And naturally, when you go to a cafe, you expect avocado and toast to be on the menu. And for 6 months of the year, it's just not at Estabar. And so for 6 months of the year, we have to explain to customers why it's not. And they don't believe us because I can go to Coles and get an avocado right now. And so so that gave us a lot of opportunity to educate customers that, well, sure you can, but that's probably from Brazil or New Zealand, not so bad, but it's probably from somewhere far, far away. And it's the food miles involved in getting it here and what it's been through to get here is going to reflect its nutritional value and its impact on the earth. But anyway, so that not offering avocados was a point of contention for many customers, and often they brought their own.
Right. Fancy that. I wouldn't actually think that people would bring their own. But good on you for standing by your values and not actually providing avocado. Because you're right, nowadays it seems to be a stock standard thing on the menu. But I remember back in the 90s, hey, avocado, like what is that? That's an exotic fruit or vegetable or whatever it's known as. That was a big shake-up for me, that banana is going, why? Why do they still offer that when they're just a huge cost?
It's so great that you had the opportunity to become aware of that and to notice that little mismatch.
Oh, it's funny what children do. Once you start having children, you realise a lot more things. And you question, like I know I question a lot more things after having children, and I changed a lot of my practices in life after having children. And it's that more aligned with my values as well.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit more urgent because you've got another life on the line and you're responsible for how it's turning out.
Absolutely. What about the value of small or local businesses? A lot has been talked about in the last 5 years about supporting small and local business. But how important is that?
It is absolutely key to our survival. It is so important that we support our local businesses. We know that these big multinational industrial giants don't give a stuff about our nutrition, about the environment, about our community, and that everybody has got a purpose and a paycheck. They exist for the shareholders. So if we put all of our faith, which really means if we put all of our money in their pockets by choosing their products, we're going to be left with a barren local food system, which means we're going to be left with whatever they deem is cheap enough and suitable enough for them to be bothered to put to us. So when we're supporting our local food system, we are building relationships with people. Like, it's great to know where your food comes from, but it's even better to know who made it. That is an innate human need, I feel, to have some connection to who made your food. So I think that there's some serious value in that. But also, if we're supporting these small local producers that are walking amongst us, we're supporting people who, in my experience anyway, care about their environment because that's where they live. So they can't douse it in pesticides because that's where they live. And they care about the quality of their produce because they're putting it from their hands into somebody else's hands, and they're going to get the feedback next week that there was no flavour or that was whatever was happening with that produce. So I think supporting local and seasonal is so important for the food security, making sure that we have great food on offer moving forward, for the relationships that we build, but also for ultimately our own health. Because if we're eating food that is nutritionally dense, that's seasonally appropriate, we're feeding ourselves well, which means that our health in the moment is going to be better. But also in 10 years' time, we're spending less at the doctors than we would have been if we just ate poor food from multinationals. So I think we're making an investment in the health of our community, our environments, and ourselves.
Yeah, wow, you've mentioned some really big points there. And it's such, I read a book called Upstream, and it talks about here is the problem and there's ways to solve it. Downstream solving is like, there's a problem, there's a knee-jerk reaction, how can we solve it? But upstream thinking is more about what happens before it gets to that problem point. And you've just explained it so nicely about choosing quality food or valuing quality food, and having these values that can impact upon your lifestyle choices are way more important for the long term, because overall living sustainably is impacting upon our own health and well-being, and it's impacting upon the health of the planet. So if we make those choices now, then we're all going to be better off.
The decision that you make right now to buy that avocado or that avocado has so many more consequences than what the cost is for you right now, because of that impact on the environment and the people that produced it, and then ultimately your own health. So, cost, I appreciate, is a factor, but it can't be the driving factor.
No, and that's the thing with large supermarkets and multinationals as well, is that they lead us to believe that our strongest value is cheap. And that's our strongest. But there is so many more values that we have as part of us.
if we get things for cheap, we don't value them, and then it's no problem to chuck it in the bin at the end of the week when it gets a bit saggy. But if we've paid great money for it and we know the person who grew it and we know it's a great piece of fruit and veggie, then we're more likely to actually use it. So we're going to save money by not having to buy it multiple times before we actually eat it. But we also save on waste, and I think that's one of the most critical issues for us in modern times is that we just generate an obscene amount of waste by just buying too much stuff that we don't use or that we don't use often enough. And the waste streams are not great. It just goes to landfill. Food can be recycled. There's heaps of organic materials that can be recycled, but the options are not immediately obvious and not always great. Although Recycle Smart, I will plug Recycle Smart. They're a really great option for moving on lots of your things. But again, you'll be called to take responsibility for what you bought because you've got to pay to get it recycled. You've got to pay to get it recycled. But either you pay or the environment pays and the future generations pay. So you made the choice. You're really ultimately responsible, so you should pay. You can just send it to the tip for sure, and the environment will pay and future generations will pay. But I think having a look at the waste you generate as a really key thing for a person who wants to be environmentally responsible, who has that value of sustainability and contribution to the community to really consider.
Absolutely. And there is a cost to recycling.
Yes.
Or waste removal.
That's right. There is no away. It does not disappear. We know that. We absolutely know that.
Since buying from Box Divvy, which I've also interviewed Jane from Box Divvy about this as well, but since purchasing my fruit and veg from Box Divvy, the amount of waste we actually, I should say differently, is we don't actually have waste when we order from that, because the difference is the vegetables and the fruit are so fresh and have higher quality, and so it makes you want to eat it and use it, and you're less likely to throw it out because it's more delicious.
It's so true. We get our fruit and veg from Pharmacy Organics.
Right.
Same thing, beautiful relationship to have.
Yeah.
Gorgeous produce arrives. And the other cool thing I like about that, it's a little bit like the Estabar model in that you are just getting what's local and seasonal. So you're getting what nature is intending you to eat right now. And you have to be a little bit creative about how you're going to prepare it because maybe you're not used to cooking that particular thing. But then also importantly, you're getting a variety of nutrients that you might not get if you just went to a supermarket and bought the same 6 things every time. So your body is going, oh, thank goodness, I needed a little bit of that. So I think it's really beautiful to be able to support something like that.
Thanks so much for your conversation, Bec. It's been absolutely wonderful to have a chat to you. If you have at least one tip for listeners about values, what would that be?
I would say, for starters, have a little think about what they are for you and write them down. And then in terms of the thing I was thinking about is that it can be overwhelming, especially if you feel like maybe you haven't been living to your values or to the values that you would aspire to have, to think about how you're going to make that change. And I would just suggest that you pick 3 or 4 things that are the things that you mostly do in your life or you mostly consume in your life, and you just look for the best option. So at Estabar, that was bread, milk, probably salmon, and coffee. And so if we could just nail those 4, it's a good start without feeling like you have to retrofit your whole life instantly. Start with the big 4, enjoy those changes, and then see how building that muscle just infiltrates the rest of your life, and where you start to spot other ways to live more according to your values and add more value to your own health, the health of your community, and the health of your planet.
Thanks, Bec.
Pleasure, Marty.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the ReNewy Living Podcast. I hope you're feeling more confident about taking a localised and actionable approach to living sustainably. If this episode has inspired you to take simple action, please follow the ReNewy Living Podcast so you can catch every episode. We'd love it if you could share this episode with your friends. It's a great way to spread the word and help more people join the conversation about living sustainably. You can even send me an email with the episode that really made it for you. Hearing your positive actions for change helps me understand how these stories work within our shared communities. Head over to my website, renewyliving.com.au, for the show notes and blog posts from this episode. I look forward to sharing more stories from the people of Newcastle as we delve into our community's diverse social and environmental practices for positive planetary change from a localised perspective.